All right, Leonardo, let me paint you a picture. Victorian Britain was worried about a lot of things: sewer gas, moral decline, and of course the French. But nothing, absolutely nothing, matched their fear of wallpaper. Yes, wallpaper, because they were convinced it was quietly exhaling poison, not metaphorically, chemically, fatally. A bright green pigment named copper acetorcinite was accused of turning perfectly normal homes into slow, elegant gas chambers. You'd think someone would test that. But no, why ruin a perfectly good panic? Emerald green wasn't just a colour, it was a lifestyle. Bright, bold, and a subtle way of saying, look at us, we're doing far better than our neighbours. It covered parlours, nurseries, draperies, even children's books. It was everywhere, which meant paranoia could be everywhere too. Someone faints in a green room. The wallpaper did it. A child coughs near a green curtain. The wallpaper again, correlation by interior design. Honestly, Leonardo, it's almost poetic. So chemists, being chemists, proposed a mechanism. Damp wallpaper grows mould. Mould meets arsenic. Arsenic becomes arsenic gas, a very real poison. And on paper, the idea looked beautifully tidy, almost too tidy. Because that is normally the moment you say, all right, let's test it. Except nobody did. Not one Victorian scientist, no air samples, no controlled rooms, no measurements. The entire thing was accepted because it sounded right. Naturally, the press adored the story. The poison in the parlour. The green assassin. Illustrations with green vapour drifting off wallpaper like some Victorian horror film. It was gothic melodrama with a lab coat thrown over it. Readers loved it. Editors cashed in. Chemistry by ghost story. You have to admire the commitment. Enter William Morris, artist, poet, socialist icon, and heir to one of Britain's largest arsenic mines. His wallpapers were gorgeous. They were also green, very green. So when critics suggested that his products might be poisoning households, Morris dismissed it as nonsense. Not because he had actually studied the chemistry, of course, but because danger is terrible for business. A principled stand, just the wrong principle. Now let's be fair, Leonardo. Emerald green was dangerous, but for very boring reasons. Factory workers inhaled pigment dust. Children chewed on bright green book pages. Artists ground the powder with excellent dedication and terrible ventilation. Real harm. Measured harm. But no invisible vapours creeping out of parlours at night. Nothing cinematic, nothing spooky. Reality is so often disappointingly pedestrian. And here is the truly astonishing part. Despite decades of fear, regulation, and melodramatic headlines, no one ever performed the one experiment the entire theory rested on. Nobody took mouldy emerald green wallpaper, put it in a damp room, and actually measured the air. Not once. When modern researchers finally did test it, the gas produced wasn't arsine at all, but trimethylarsine, a much less toxic compound. Essentially, the microbes were trying to detoxify the arsenic, not weaponize it. The myth was chemically plausible and chemically wrong. Emerald green didn't disappear because science proved it was lethal in homes. It disappeared because people with authority assumed it had to be. Once institutions acted, the story fossilized. To this day, museums isolate arsenical books. Conservation labs still treat emerald green as if it exudes arsenic gas whenever it gets mildly damp. A myth so confident it became procedure. And that's the real lesson here, Leonardo. Not that Victorian wallpaper was dangerous, but that an explanation repeated often enough becomes reality by sheer inertia. Science didn't remove emerald green from the home. A story did. A story no one bothered to test. Shall we test it now? we'd be the first. Exactly. And here's the real mindbender, Leonardo. Arsenic, the villain of Victorian wallpaper, the supposed silent killer in middle-class parlours, is now officially listed by the Royal Society of Chemistry as a serious threat in the next 100 years. Not because there's too much of it, because the world might not have enough. The thing Victorians thought was poisoning their bedrooms is now an essential ingredient in advanced materials, infrared technology, and the detectors inside the James Webb Space Telescope, the instrument literally showing us the earliest light in the universe. So after 2 centuries of panic about arsenic in wallpaper, the real crisis might be arsenic running out. From "it's murdering us in our homes" to "please don't let the universe-detecting supply chain collapse." That's not just irony, that's cosmic irony. And if you think this myth was wild, it's only one chapter of a much bigger story. If you want the full forensic romp through bad science, bold claims and beautiful pigments that deserve better, you can dive into my book, The Pigment Delusion. It's out now, on Amazon, on Apple Books, everywhere self-published trouble tends to appear. Just don't read it near green wallpaper. For tradition's sake.